Picture this. It's 1878 in the dusty town of Copper Ridge, Arizona. The sun beats down on wooden buildings that creak and groan like old bones. And there's a woman standing in front of the general store, holding a letter that's about to break her heart. Her name is Sarah May Collins, 26 years old, brown hair pulled back in a simple bun, calloused hands from years of hard work. The kind of woman who blends into the background like tumbleweeds against a fence. Sarah's reading a letter from her sister back in Missouri, another wedding invitation, another reminder that she's the only Collins girl still unmarried, the only one who never caught a man's eye. Plain as yesterday's biscuits, the town women whisper. Sweet girl, but nothing special to look at. Sarah folds the letter and puts it in her apron pocket. She's heard it all before. At church socials, men's eyes slide right past her to the younger, prettier girls. At barn dances, she serves punch while others dance. But here's what those people don't see. Sarah runs the town's only school. She taught herself to read French from an old book. She can bandage a wound, birth a calf, and solve problems that would stump most men. None of that matters in Copper Ridge. Here, a woman's worth is measured by how many men tip their hats when she walks by. Sarah's walking home when she hears the rumble of wagon wheels. A stranger's coming to town. Tall man with weathered skin and eyes like winter sky. He's leading a pack mule loaded with surveying equipment. He stops his wagon right in front of her, tips his hat. Ma'am, I'm looking for somewhere to stable my animals. Know of a good place? Sarah points toward Murphy's livery. 3 blocks down, past the saloon. Tell Murphy that Miss Collins sent you. He'll treat you fair. The stranger nods, but he doesn't move on. He's staring at her with an expression she's never seen before, like he's trying to memorize her face. Much obliged, Miss Collins. His voice is rough as sandpaper. Name's Jake Morrison. I'll be surveying land around here for the railroad. The railroad. Sarah's eyes widen. They're really coming through Copper Ridge. Yes, ma'am. And when they do, this town's going to change forever. Jake tips his hat again and drives away. But Sarah stands there in the street, feeling something she's never felt before. For just a moment, a handsome stranger looked at her like she mattered. That night, Sarah stares at herself in the cracked mirror above her wash basin. Same brown eyes, same unremarkable face. But something feels different. She doesn't know it yet, but Jake Morrison is about to turn her world upside down. Would you have believed him if a stranger looked at you that way? Tell me in the comments what you think Sarah should do. But what Sarah doesn't know is that Jake Morrison is carrying secrets that could destroy everything she's about to discover about herself. 3 days pass. Jake Morrison sets up camp on the hill overlooking Copper Ridge. Every morning, he walks through town with his surveying equipment. Every afternoon, he stops by the school where Sarah teaches. Not to talk, just to listen. Sarah's teaching a class of 12 children, ages 6 to 16. The older boys tower over her, but she commands their respect. Her voice carries clear and strong through the open windows. Mathematics isn't just numbers on a slate, she's saying. It's how we measure land for farming, how we calculate materials for building, how we plan for the future. Jake leans against the schoolhouse wall, mesmerized. This woman who thinks she's plain is teaching children to dream bigger than their circumstances. After class, Jake approaches her. Miss Collins, I've been listening to your teaching. You're remarkable. Sarah blushes and looks away. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Morrison. No, ma'am. You're doing something extraordinary. These children will remember you for the rest of their lives. Nobody's ever called Sarah remarkable before. The word hits her like sunshine after a storm. Mr. Morrison, can I ask you something? Why are you really here? The railroad survey could be done by any engineer. Why send someone like you? Jake's expression changes. The warmth in his eyes flickers like a candle in the wind. What do you mean, someone like me? You're educated, well-spoken. Your hands aren't calloused like a working man's. And that surveying equipment, it's too fine for a simple railroad job. Sarah's hit closer to the truth than she knows. Jake Morrison isn't just a surveyor. He's a geologist working for Eastern investors, men who want to buy up land cheap before the railroad arrives, men who don't care if they destroy small towns in the process. But Jake can't tell her that, not yet. You're very observant, Miss Collins, maybe too observant for your own good. That evening, Jake finds Sarah at the church social. She's serving coffee and cake, invisible as always, but when their eyes meet across the room, something electric passes between them. Jake walks over. Miss Collins, would you do me the honor of a dance? The entire room goes quiet. Every eye turns to stare. Sarah May Collins, the plain school teacher, being asked to dance by the handsome stranger. Sarah's hands shake as she unties her apron. I don't dance very well, Mr. Morrison. I don't believe that for a second. Jake leads her to the center of the room. The fiddle player starts a slow waltz, and as they move together, something magical happens. Sarah doesn't stumble. She doesn't step on his feet. She flows like water in his arms, her body moving in perfect rhythm with his. The other couples stop dancing to watch. For the first time in her life, Sarah Collins is the center of attention for all the right reasons. When the music ends, Jake doesn't let go of her hand immediately. He looks into her eyes and says the words that will change everything. Miss Collins, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. Sarah's world tilts on its axis. Mr. Morrison, you don't have to. I'm not being polite. I'm telling you the truth. You have a light inside you that makes every other woman in this room fade to shadows. Do you think Jake is being honest, or is he playing a game? Let me know what your gut tells you. But as Sarah falls asleep that night, glowing with happiness, Jake sits in his camp writing a letter to his employers. A letter that will betray everything she's beginning to believe about herself. 2 weeks later, Sarah's life has transformed. Jake Morrison calls on her every evening. They walk through town together, talking about books, dreams, and the future. For the first time, Sarah feels like she's living instead of just surviving. The town gossips are working overtime. Can you believe it? Plain Sarah Collins has herself a beau. Must be something wrong with that man's eyes. Mark my words, he'll move on once he sees what's available. But Sarah doesn't care about the gossip. When Jake looks at her, she sees herself through his eyes, intelligent, capable, beautiful. One evening, they're sitting on her front porch when Jake takes her hand. Sarah, I have something to tell you. I'm falling in love with you. Sarah's heart stops. Jake, You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. You've changed how I see everything. This town, my work, my future. Before I met you, I was just going through the motions. Now I wake up every morning excited to see your face. Sarah's eyes fill with tears. No one's ever said anything like that to me before. Then every man in this town is a fool. That night, Sarah can't sleep. She walks to the schoolhouse to prepare lessons for the next day. The moon is full, casting silver light through the windows. She's organizing papers when she hears voices outside. Jake's voice and another man's. The survey's almost complete, Jake is saying. The railroad will come through the eastern ridge, just like we planned. Good. The other voice is harsh, unfamiliar. And the townspeople, do they suspect anything? No. They think I'm just surveying for the railroad route. They have no idea we're mapping their land for copper mining. Sarah's blood turns to ice. Copper mining? That would destroy the town, the streams, the farmland, everything. What about that school teacher you've been courting? She seems smart. Could she cause problems? Jake laughs. It's a cold sound that Sarah's never heard before. Sarah? She's completely under my spell. The poor woman's so grateful for male attention, she'll believe anything I tell her. I could convince her the sky is green if I said it with enough charm. Sarah presses her hand to her mouth to keep from crying out. You're certain she won't interfere with our plans? Positive. Sarah Collins is exactly what everyone says she is. Plain, simple, and easily manipulated. She's so desperate to be loved that she's blind to everything else. The voices fade as the men walk away. Sarah slumps against the schoolhouse wall, feeling like her heart's been ripped from her chest. Everything was a lie. The beautiful words, the tender looks, the promises of love. Jake Morrison was using her, playing on her loneliness and desperation. But as Sarah sits there in the moonlight, something shifts inside her. The hurt begins to transform into something else. Anger, determination, a fire she's never felt before. Jake Morrison thinks she's plain and simple. He thinks she's easily manipulated. He's about to discover just how wrong he is. Sarah stands up, brushes the dust from her skirt, and walks home with purpose in every step. She has work to do. Have you ever had someone betray your trust like this? How did you handle it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Because tomorrow, Sarah Collins is going to show this town what a plain woman can do when she's pushed too far. Sarah doesn't sleep that night. She sits at her kitchen table, making plans by lamplight. If Jake Morrison wants to play games, she'll give him a game he'll never forget. First, she needs proof, real evidence of what Jake and his partners are planning. The next morning, Sarah acts normal. When Jake comes by the school, she smiles and blushes just like always, but inside she's watching everything, listening to every word. "Sarah, darling, I have wonderful news," Jake says, taking her hands. "The railroad survey is almost finished. Soon we can start planning our future together." The endearment makes Sarah's skin crawl, but she forces herself to look delighted. "Our future, Jake. I was hoping, that is, I'd like to ask your father for your hand in marriage." "My father's been dead for 10 years, Jake." "Then I'll ask the Reverend, or the Mayor, someone proper." Jake's smile is perfect, but Sarah sees the calculation behind it now. "We could be married before the railroad arrives, start fresh in a new place." A new place. Of course, once the mining operation starts, Copper Ridge will be uninhabitable. Jake's planning to marry her and take her away before she discovers what he's done to her hometown. "That sounds wonderful," Sarah lies. "But Jake, I'm curious about your work. Could you show me your surveying maps sometime? I'd love to understand what you do." Jake's eyes flicker with something that might be suspicion. "Surveying maps are quite technical, darling. Nothing that would interest a lady. But I teach mathematics, remember? I might find them fascinating." "Perhaps someday," Jake says dismissively. "Right now, I need to focus on finishing the work." That afternoon, Sarah puts her real plan into motion. She visits Mrs. Henderson, the town's biggest gossip. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm so excited. I can barely contain myself. Jake's shown me the most interesting papers about the railroad. Did you know they're planning to bring more than just passenger service through here?" Mrs. Henderson's eyes light up. "Really? What else?" "Well, I probably shouldn't say." Sarah glances around dramatically. "But there might be opportunities for the townspeople to invest. Jake says people who get in early could make substantial profits." Within hours, half the town is buzzing with excitement about railroad investment opportunities. By evening, a group of businessmen approaches Jake at the saloon. "Morrison, we hear you might have some investment information for local folks," says Mayor Williams. Jake looks genuinely confused. "I'm sorry, but I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just here to survey the route." "Come now," says the bank president. "Miss Collins told Mrs. Henderson all about it. Investment opportunities, early profits. We're interested." Sarah watches from across the street as Jake's face goes pale. He's trapped between maintaining his cover story and dealing with a room full of men expecting inside information. But Sarah's just getting started. The next day, she sends a telegram to the railroad headquarters in Phoenix. She phrases it carefully. "Urgent inquiry. Stop surveyor claiming railroad authority in Copper Ridge. Stop request confirmation of Jacob Morrison credentials. Stop townspeople concerned about authenticity. Stop." The response comes back that afternoon. "No surveyor named Morrison employed by this company. Stop railroad route through Copper Ridge. Cancelled 6 months ago. Stop suggest local investigation. Stop." Sarah holds the telegram in her shaking hands. Jake Morrison isn't just lying about loving her. He's lying about everything. That evening, Jake comes to her house looking frustrated. "Sarah, darling, there seems to be some confusion in town. People think I have investment opportunities to offer. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Sarah looks up from her mending with innocent eyes. "Investment opportunities? How exciting! Are you offering them?" "No, of course not. I'm just a surveyor." "Oh," Sarah frowns prettily. "That's strange. I was so sure you mentioned something about people getting in early on profitable ventures. Maybe I misunderstood." Jake studies her face carefully. "Maybe you did." But Sarah can see doubt creeping into his eyes. The plain, simple school teacher is asking too many questions, acting too interested in things that should bore her. What would you do if you discovered someone was lying about everything? Would you confront them directly or play the long game like Sarah? That night, as Jake rides back to his camp, he has no idea that Sarah Collins is about to reveal the truth about his scheme to the entire town. And when she does, the woman he thought was too plain to matter will become his biggest nightmare. Sunday morning arrives with clear skies and a cool breeze, perfect weather for the monthly town meeting after church service. Sarah sits in her usual pew, hands folded, looking like the same quiet schoolteacher she's always been. But hidden in her prayer book is the telegram from the railroad company. After Reverend Mitchell's sermon about truth and deception, Mayor Williams stands up. Before we adjourn, we have some community business to discuss. As you all know, Mr. Morrison has been surveying our area for the railroad. We're hoping he'll share some details about the opportunities Miss Collins mentioned. Jake stands reluctantly. Sarah watches him scan the crowd, his confident facade showing cracks. Folks, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I'm just here to survey potential routes. I don't have any investment information. Murmurs ripple through the congregation. These people have been excited about railroad profits for days. But Miss Collins said, Mrs. Henderson begins. Miss Collins misunderstood something I said. Jake interrupts, his voice sharp. That's Sarah's cue. She stands up slowly, clutching her prayer book. Mr. Morrison, I'm confused. Yesterday you told me the railroad survey was almost finished, but I received this telegram from the Phoenix Railroad office. Sarah walks to the front of the church and hands the telegram to Mayor Williams. Her hands aren't shaking anymore. Her voice is clear and strong. According to the railroad company, they have no surveyor named Jacob Morrison. Furthermore, the railroad route through Copper Ridge was cancelled 6 months ago. The silence is deafening. Every eye turns to Jake, whose face has gone white as cotton. There must be some mistake, Jake stammers. I can explain. I'm sure you can, Sarah says calmly, just like you explained how much you love me, just like you explained how beautiful I am. Another story, Mr. Morrison? Jake's mouth opens and closes like a fish out of water. The congregation is staring at him with growing anger and suspicion. Mayor Williams stands up. Mr. Morrison, if you're not working for the railroad, who are you working for, and why are you really here? Jake looks around the room desperately. He's trapped and everyone knows it. I was hired by Eastern investors to survey mineral deposits in this area. Mineral deposits? The mayor's voice rises. What kind of minerals? Copper. There are significant copper deposits in the hills around your town. The implications hit the crowd like a thunderbolt. Copper mining means destroyed farmland, poisoned streams, and the end of life as they know it. You've been lying to us for weeks, says Farmer Tom Bradley, pretending to be a railroad man while you were really here to steal our land. It's not stealing, Jake protests. It's legitimate business. The investors plan to offer fair prices. Fair prices for land that's going to make them rich? Sarah's voice cuts through his excuses like a blade. Land they can buy cheap because the owners don't know what's underneath it? Jake's eyes meet Sarah's across the crowded church. For a moment, she sees something that might be genuine regret. Sarah, what I said about loving you was part of the lie, Sarah finishes. You thought the plain school teacher would be easy to fool, someone so grateful for attention that she'd never ask hard questions. The congregation is getting uglier by the minute. Men are standing up, hands moving toward gun belts. You better ride out of here, Morrison, growls Sheriff Parker, before folks decide to make you permanently unwelcome. Jake looks around the room one more time. When his eyes meet Sarah's, she sees defeat and something else. Shame. Sarah, Goodbye, Mr. Morrison. Jake nods slowly and walks out of the church. Through the windows, they can see him mounting his horse and riding toward his camp on the hill. As the crowd disperses, buzzing with anger and excitement, several townspeople approach Sarah. Miss Collins, how did you figure out he was lying? Asks Mrs. Henderson. I paid attention, Sarah says simply. Something my students taught me. When someone's story doesn't add up, ask better questions. But as Sarah walks home alone, she feels empty inside. Yes, she exposed Jake Morrison's lies. Yes, she protected her town, but she also lost something precious. For 3 weeks she felt beautiful. For 3 weeks she believed someone could love her. Even if it was all fake, part of her misses that feeling. Have you ever had to choose between protecting others and protecting your own feelings? It's one of the hardest decisions we face. What would you have done? That evening, as Sarah sits on her porch watching the sunset, she doesn't know that Jake Morrison is sitting in his camp, staring at the lights of Copper Ridge and questioning everything he thought he knew about love, beauty, and the woman who outsmarted him. 3 days pass. The town expects Jake Morrison to disappear like morning mist, but his camp remains on the hill. Smoke still rises from his campfire each evening. Sarah tries to ignore it, but her students won't let her. "Miss Collins," asked 10-year-old Emma, "why is that man still here? My pa says he's a liar and a cheat." "Sometimes, Emma, people need time to figure out what to do next. But he hurt you, didn't he? He made you sad." Sarah looks into Emma's innocent eyes and realizes her students have been watching everything. They've seen her glow with happiness, then return to her quiet sadness. "Yes, he hurt me, but I'm stronger now because of it." That afternoon, Sarah's grading papers when a shadow falls across her desk. She looks up to see Jake Morrison standing in the schoolhouse doorway. He looks terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, like he hasn't slept in days. "What do you want, Mr. Morrison?" "To apologize and to tell you the truth." "I already know the truth. You lied about everything." Jake steps into the classroom slowly, like he's approaching a wild animal. "No, Sarah, I lied about the railroad. I lied about my job, but I never lied about how I feel about you." Sarah laughs bitterly. "Really? You never lied about calling me beautiful, about saying you love me?" "No." Jake's voice is barely above a whisper. "That was the one true thing in all my lies." Sarah stares at him. "You expect me to believe that?" "I don't expect anything, but I need you to know." Jake sits down heavily in one of the student desks, looking absurd and broken. "When I came here, you were just part of the job, a potential obstacle to manage. I was supposed to keep the locals happy while we completed our survey. And I was an easy target, the desperate spinster. That's what I thought at first. But Sarah, the moment I really looked at you, really saw you, everything changed." Jake runs his hands through his hair. "Do you remember that first dance, when you moved in my arms like you were born to it? When every person in that room saw what I saw?" Despite herself, Sarah remembers the feeling of being graceful, beautiful, wanted. "You have a light inside you that makes everyone around you better." Jake continues. "Your students worship you. The parents respect you. Even the men who ignore you know you're worth 10 of them." "Pretty words, Mr. Morrison, but words are all you have." Jake reaches into his coat and pulls out a thick envelope. "No, Sarah, I have this." He places the envelope on her desk. "It's a detailed report of every mineral deposit my team found. Names of the investors. Maps showing which properties they plan to target. Everything your town needs to protect itself." Sarah stares at the envelope. "Why?" "Because you changed me. Because for the first time in my life, I met someone worth being honest for." Sarah's hands shake as she opens the envelope. Inside are dozens of pages of technical drawings, mineral surveys, and correspondence. It's everything the townspeople would need to negotiate fair prices or refuse to sell altogether. "This could ruin you," Sarah whispers. "These investors will never hire you again." "I know. You'll lose everything." "I've already lost everything that matters." Sarah looks up at Jake's face. The charm is gone, the practiced smile vanished. What's left is raw honesty and pain. "What do you want from me, Jake?" "Nothing. I know I destroyed any chance we might have had. I just wanted you to know that when I called you beautiful, I meant it. When I said I loved you, I meant it. And I'll spend the rest of my life regretting that I let greed and cowardice ruin the best thing that ever happened to me." Jake stands up slowly. "There's something else you should know. I sent a telegram to my employers yesterday. I told them the mineral survey was unsuccessful, that there's nothing worth mining here." "You lied to them?" "Yes, and they believed me because I've never lied to them before. Your town is safe, Sarah. The investors are moving on to other opportunities. Sarah stares at the papers in her hands, then at the man walking toward the door. Jake, wait! He stops but doesn't turn around. Why should I believe any of this? How do I know this isn't just another scheme? Jake finally turns. His eyes are wet with unshed tears. Because, Sarah Collins, you taught me something I never learned before. You taught me what it feels like to want to be worthy of someone. And even though I know I never can be, I'd rather die trying than live knowing I didn't. If someone who hurt you came back with proof they'd changed, would you give them a second chance? It's a question that goes to the heart of forgiveness and trust. As Jake walks out of the schoolhouse, Sarah sits alone with the papers that could save her town and the terrible, wonderful possibility that maybe, just maybe, some people really can change. Sarah spends the entire night studying Jake's papers. Every map, every survey report, every piece of correspondence. By dawn, she's certain of two things. The documents are genuine, and Jake Morrison has sacrificed his career to protect Copper Ridge. But protecting the town is one thing, trusting her heart is another. The next morning, Sarah calls a town meeting. She stands before the same crowd that watched Jake's humiliation and presents his evidence. These documents prove Mr. Morrison was telling the truth about the mineral survey, she announces. They also prove he's told his employers there's nothing here worth mining. Our town is safe. The crowd erupts in questions and arguments. Mayor Williams pounds his gavel for order. Miss Collins, are you suggesting we should trust this man after he lied to us for weeks? I'm suggesting we look at his actions, Sarah replies. He could have completed his survey and disappeared. Instead, he gave us the tools to protect ourselves. Maybe it's another trick, suggests Mrs. Henderson. To what end? The investors have already moved on. There's nothing left for him to gain. Sheriff Parker stands up. Begging your pardon, Miss Collins, but there is something left. You. The words hang in the air like smoke. Everyone knows Jake's been courting Sarah. Everyone assumes his change of heart is just another way to win her affections. You think he's doing this to manipulate me? Sarah asks. Wouldn't be the first time a man went to great lengths for a woman, the sheriff replies. Sarah feels heat rise in her cheeks. Not embarrassment this time, but anger. Sheriff Parker, let me ask you something. Do you think I'm so foolish that I can't tell the difference between manipulation and genuine remorse? I didn't mean, do you think I'm so desperate for male attention that I'll fall for any man who shows me kindness? The sheriff shifts uncomfortably. Miss Collins, I just think, you think I'm plain and simple and easily fooled, just like Mr. Morrison thought when he first came here. Sarah's voice rises with each word. The entire room is silent now, transfixed by the transformation of their quiet schoolteacher. Well, let me tell you what I think. I think I'm intelligent enough to evaluate evidence. I think I'm strong enough to make my own decisions. And I think I'm done letting other people decide what I'm worth. Sarah gathers the papers from the podium. Mr. Morrison's documents speak for themselves. What he did was wrong, but what he's doing now is right. The town is protected. That's what matters. As Sarah walks toward the door, Mrs. Henderson calls out, But Miss Collins, what about your feelings? Surely you can't forgive him for breaking your heart. Sarah stops and turns back. Mrs. Henderson, my heart isn't as fragile as you think. It's been broken before and it survived. But more importantly, I've learned something about myself these past few weeks. What's that, dear? I learned that I don't need someone else to tell me I'm beautiful. I already am. Sarah walks out of the church, leaving a room full of people staring after her in amazement. That afternoon, Sarah finds Jake sitting by the creek that runs behind the schoolhouse. He's skipping stones across the water, looking lost and alone. The town meeting went well, she says, sitting down beside him. They've accepted your evidence. And me? That's a different question. Jake nods sadly. I understand I'll be leaving soon. I just wanted to see the place one more time. They sit in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the water flow over the rocks. Jake, can I ask you something? Anything. When you first came here, what did you see when you looked at me? Jake considers carefully. Honestly, I saw exactly what everyone else saw, a plain woman who would be easy to charm and easy to forget. The words sting, but Sarah appreciates his honesty. And now, Jake picks up another stone, turns it over in his hands. Now I see the most beautiful woman I've ever known. Not because of how you look, though you are lovely, but because of who you are. The way you care for your students, the way you stand up for what's right, the way you saw through my lies and still found room for forgiveness. I haven't forgiven you yet, Sarah says quietly. I know, I don't expect you to, but I might someday. Jake looks at her with something like hope in his eyes. There's something I need to know first, Sarah continues. If I were truly plain, if I looked exactly like everyone says I look, would you still love me? This is the question that goes to the heart of everything, isn't it? What is real love based on? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what makes someone truly beautiful. Jake's answer will determine not just their future, but whether Sarah Collins finally learns to see herself as she truly is. Jake doesn't answer immediately. He stands up and walks to the edge of the creek, where the afternoon sun turns the water into liquid gold. Sarah, do you want the honest answer, or the answer you think you want to hear?
The honest answer, always.
Jake turns back to face her. When I first saw you, I thought you were plain. I was looking with eyes that had been trained to see only one kind of beauty, the kind that shows up in photographs and turns heads in crowded rooms. Sarah nods, though the words hurt. But here's what I didn't understand then. That kind of beauty is like fool's gold. It catches the light, but it has no real value. What you have is the real thing. Jake, let me finish, please. I need to say this right. Jake sits back down beside her, close enough that she can see the sincerity in his eyes. I've known women who could stop traffic with their looks. I courted a banker's daughter in Denver who could make men forget their own names. But Sarah, not one of them made me feel what you make me feel. And what's that? Like I want to be better than I am. Like I want to deserve you, even though I know I never can. Sarah looks down at her hands, weathered from years of hard work. Everyone in this town sees the same thing when they look at me. A spinster schoolteacher who never caught a man's eye. Everyone in this town is blind. Or maybe you are. Jake reaches over and gently lifts her chin until she's looking at him. Sarah, do you know what I see when I look at you? She shakes her head. I see a woman who taught herself French because she loves learning. I see someone who stays after school to help children who struggle with reading. I see a person who looked at a stranger's lies and had the courage to expose the truth, even when it meant losing something precious. Jake's voice grows softer. I see someone who blushes when she laughs, someone who gets a little line between her eyebrows when she's concentrating, someone who bites her lip when she's nervous and doesn't even know she's doing it. Sarah realizes she's biting her lip right now. I see a woman who is so beautiful inside and out that she makes every other woman I've ever known seem like pale shadows. But if I really were plain— You're asking the wrong question, Jake interrupts. You're asking if I would love you if you were plain. But Sarah, I fell in love with you because you are plain in the most beautiful way possible. Sarah frowns. That doesn't make sense. Yes, it does. You're plain-spoken. You say what you mean. You're plain in your affections. When you care about someone, you show it honestly. You're plain in your values. You believe in right and wrong without compromise. Jake stands up and begins pacing beside the creek. The women I knew before were all artifice and calculation. Every smile was practiced. Every word was chosen for effect. But you, Sarah Collins, are real, genuine, plain in all the ways that matter most. Sarah feels tears starting in her eyes. I've spent my whole life thinking plain was something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. It's what makes you extraordinary. The town will never see it that way. Then the town is missing out on knowing the most remarkable woman in Arizona territory. Sarah wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. Jake, I want to believe you, but how do I know this isn't just another beautiful lie? Jake kneels down in front of her, taking her hands in his. Because I'm not the same man who came here 6 weeks ago. That man was a coward and a fool. That man was willing to destroy an entire town for money. This man, the man you helped me become, would rather die than hurt you again. People don't change that quickly. They do when they meet someone worth changing for. Sarah studies his face, searching for any sign of deception. All she sees is love and hope and the kind of vulnerability that can't be faked. If I forgive you, if I take this chance, what happens next? I don't know, Jake admits. I've burned my bridges with the mining company. I have no job, no prospects, and about $50 to my name. All I have to offer you is a man who's learned the difference between fool's gold and the real thing. Sarah looks into his eyes for a long moment. Then she does something that surprises them both. She laughs. Jake Morrison, do you know what I see when I look at you? A man who doesn't deserve you. I see a man who gave up everything to do the right thing. I see someone who learned that love isn't about taking what you want. It's about protecting what you cherish. Jake's eyes widen with hope. I also see a man who needs a job, Sarah continues with a smile. It just so happens that Copper Ridge needs a new schoolmaster. The job doesn't pay much, but it comes with a small house and the respect of the community. Sarah, are you offering me? I'm offering you a chance to stay, to prove that the man I'm looking at is real. Jake's hands tighten on hers, and if I stay, if I prove myself worthy, then maybe, Sarah says softly, maybe we can build something real together, something plain and honest and beautiful. Would you take a chance on someone who hurt you but proved they'd changed? Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards. As the sun sets over Copper Ridge, Sarah Collins finally understands what she's been missing all these years. She wasn't waiting for someone to see her beauty. She was waiting for someone to help her see it herself. 6 months later, the town of Copper Ridge is buzzing with excitement. Sarah Collins and Jake Morrison are getting married. The plain schoolteacher and the reformed surveyor have become the most talked-about couple in 3 counties. But not everyone is happy about it. I still don't trust him, Mrs. Henderson whispers to her sewing circle. A leopard doesn't change its spots. He's been nothing but honorable since he stayed, argues Mrs. Patterson, teaching the older boys mathematics and helping with the school repairs. Mark my words, Mrs. Henderson continues, he'll break that poor girl's heart again. Sarah hears the whispers, but they don't bother her anymore. She's learned to trust her own judgment about people, including herself. The wedding is planned for Saturday afternoon in the church. Nothing fancy. Sarah's never been one for frills. But as the day approaches, she finds herself nervous in a way she's never been before. Friday evening, she's in her small house pressing her mother's wedding dress when someone knocks on the door. It's Emma, her 10-year-old student, carrying a bouquet of wildflowers. Miss Collins, I picked these for you, Emma says shyly, for your wedding tomorrow. They're beautiful, Emma, thank you. Miss Collins, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you scared? Sarah sits down, so she's at Emma's eye level. A little bit, why do you ask? My mama says getting married is scary because you never really know what someone's like until you live with them. Sarah considers this seriously. Your mama's right. Marriage is taking a chance on someone. But Emma, sometimes the most beautiful things in life require us to be brave. Do you think Mr. Morrison will be good to you? I think he'll try very hard to be, and I think I'll try very hard to be good to him too. Emma nods solemnly. I hope you'll be happy, Miss Collins. You deserve to be happy. After Emma leaves, Sarah stands in front of her mirror, holding the wedding dress. For the first time in her life, she looks at her reflection without criticism. She sees a woman who's learned her own worth, a woman who's ready to love and be loved. Saturday morning dawns clear and bright. Sarah wakes early, feeling calm and certain. She's made her choice, and she's at peace with it. But at 10 o'clock, Sheriff Parker arrives at her door with news that changes everything. Miss Collins, I'm sorry to bother you on your wedding day, but we have a problem. 3 men rode into town this morning asking about Jake Morrison. They claim he stole money from their mining operation. Sarah's blood runs cold. What kind of men? The kind that wear guns and ask hard questions. They're at the saloon now, waiting for Jake to show up. Sarah's mind races. Jake never mentioned stealing money. But then again, there's still so much about his past that they haven't discussed. Sheriff, what exactly are they claiming? They say Jake took $5,000 from their company safe before he disappeared. They have a warrant for his arrest. $5,000? It's more money than most people in Copper Ridge see in a lifetime. Where's Jake now? Getting ready at the hotel. Miss Collins, I have to ask, did you know about this? Sarah looks into Sheriff Parker's eyes. No, I didn't, but I'm going to find out the truth. Sarah walks to the hotel with her wedding dress still in her arms. The whole town is watching. Word has spread quickly about the strangers and their accusations. She finds Jake in his room, adjusting his tie in the mirror. He looks handsome and nervous and completely unprepared for what's coming. Jake, we need to talk. He turns, smiling. Sarah, you look beautiful. Are you ready to become Mrs. Morrison? 3 men are here looking for you. They say you stole $5,000. Jake's face goes white. He sits down heavily on the bed. Is it true? Sarah asks quietly. Jake looks up at her with pain in his eyes. Yes, it's true. Sarah feels like she's been punched in the stomach. Jake, how could you? It's not what you think. Let me explain. I'm listening. Jake takes a deep breath. The money was payment for falsifying survey reports. Money they gave me to lie about mineral deposits in other towns. Towns like Copper Ridge. Sarah stares at him. You took money to lie about other people's land? Yes. And when I decided to tell the truth about this place, I kept the money. I told myself I was keeping it as evidence, but really I was stealing it. Jake, why didn't you tell me? Because I was ashamed. Because I thought if you knew everything I'd done, you'd never forgive me. Sarah sinks into the room's only chair. What else haven't you told me? Nothing, Sarah. I swear to you, this is the last secret. But it's a big one. $5,000, Jake. These men aren't going to just go away. Jake nods miserably. I know. I have to face them. Have you ever been in a situation where someone you trusted revealed a secret that changed everything? It's one of the hardest tests of love and forgiveness. Sarah looks at her wedding dress, then at the man she was supposed to marry in 3 hours. Outside, she can hear the town gathering for what should be the happiest day of her life. But now, everything has changed again. Sarah sits in that hotel room, looking at Jake's face, and feels the weight of the moment. Everything they've built together hangs in the balance. Sarah, I know this changes things, Jake says quietly. I know you probably can't marry me now. You're right, Sarah says. I can't marry a man who's still hiding from his past. Jake's shoulders slump in defeat. But, Sarah continues, I might be able to marry a man who's ready to face it. Jake looks up, hope flickering in his eyes. Jake, those men downstairs, they're not going away. And running won't solve anything. You know what you have to do. Turn myself in. Make it right, all of it. Jake stands up and walks to the window. He can see the 3 men standing outside the saloon, waiting. Sarah, if I do this, if I confess and return the money, I'll probably go to prison. Probably. And you'll be left here alone again. The woman who almost married a thief. Sarah stands up too, moving to stand beside him at the window. Jake, do you remember what you told me about being plain? That it meant being honest, being real. That's right. And an honest man doesn't run from his mistakes. He faces them. Jake turns to look at her. Even if it means losing everything. Everything worth having is built on truth. Everything else is just fool's gold. Jake takes Sarah's hands. If I do this, if I go to prison, will you wait for me? Sarah considers carefully. I don't know. Prison could be years, Jake. I won't make promises I can't keep. I understand. But I will tell you this. The man who walks down those stairs and confesses his crimes, that's a man worth waiting for. The man who runs away is not. Jake nods slowly. You're asking me to choose between my freedom and my soul. I'm asking you to choose between the man you were and the man you want to be. Jake kisses her forehead gently. I love you, Sarah Collins. Whatever happens next, I need you to know that loving you made me want to be worthy of love. I love you too, Jake Morrison. That's why I need you to do the right thing. Jake straightens his shoulders and walks toward the door. Will you come with me? Yes, but not as your wife, as your friend, as someone who believes in the man you're becoming. They walk down the hotel stairs together. The entire town seems to be gathered in the street. Word has spread about the confrontation that's coming. The 3 men are standing in front of the saloon, hands resting on their gun belts. They look hard and dangerous and completely out of place in peaceful Copper Ridge. Jake walks straight up to them with Sarah beside him. "Gentlemen, I'm Jake Morrison. I believe you're looking for me." The leader, a tall man with silver hair and cold eyes, steps forward. "Morrison, you've led us quite a chase."
I'm not running anymore.
"Good, because we want our money back." Jake reaches into his coat and pulls out a leather pouch. $5,000. It's all there. The silver-haired man takes the pouch, weighs it in his hand. "What about the interest, the cost of tracking you down?" "I don't have anything else." "Then you'll have to come with us, face the judge in Denver." Jake nods. "I understand." Sheriff Parker steps forward. "Now hold on. If Morrison's committed a crime in my territory, he should face trial here." "The crime was committed in Colorado," the silver-haired man replies. "He comes with us." Sarah watches as they bind Jake's hands. The whole town is staring. Her wedding day has become a scene from a dime novel. As they're about to put Jake on a horse, he turns back to her. "Sarah, I'm sorry. For everything, for the lies, for the disappointment, for ruining your wedding day." "You didn't ruin anything, Jake. You saved it." "What do you mean?" Sarah steps closer, speaking loud enough for the whole town to hear. "I mean, I'd rather marry an honest man in prison than a dishonest man in freedom. I'd rather have a true love that waits than a false love that runs." Jake stares at her. "Sarah, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that when you get out of prison, however long that takes, I'll be here. Not because I promised to wait, but because I choose to wait for the man who chose truth over freedom." The silver-haired man looks impatient. "We need to go." But Jake's not moving. He's staring at Sarah like she's the most amazing thing he's ever seen. "You really mean it?" "I mean it." Jake turns to the silver-haired man. "Sir, I'll come with you willingly, but first I need to ask this woman to marry me, properly this time." And right there, in the middle of the street, with his hands bound and 3 bounty hunters waiting, Jake Morrison gets down on one knee. "Sarah Collins, you are the most beautiful woman I have ever known. You are plain in all the ways that matter, honest in all the ways that count, and real in a world full of pretense. Will you marry me?" Sarah looks down at him, then at the crowd of townspeople watching. These people who called her plain, who pitied her spinsterhood, who whispered about her behind her back. "Yes, Jake Morrison, I'll marry you right here, right now, before you go." Reverend Mitchell steps forward. "I can perform the ceremony." And so, in the dusty street of Copper Ridge, with the groom's hands bound and bounty hunters as witnesses, Sarah Collins and Jake Morrison are married. Not in a church, not in a white dress, but in truth and love, and the kind of plain honesty that makes everything else beautiful. When the Reverend pronounces them husband and wife, Jake can't embrace his bride, but Sarah kisses him anyway, long and deep, in front of the whole town. "I'll wait for you," she whispers. "I'll be worthy of the wait," he promises. As they ride away with Jake, Sarah stands in the street in her everyday dress, married and alone. But she's not sad, she's proud. Mrs. Henderson approaches cautiously. "Sarah, dear, are you all right?" Sarah turns to face the woman who's gossiped about her for years. "Mrs. Henderson, I have never been better. I just married the most honest man in Arizona territory. But he's a criminal. He's going to prison. He's a man who chose to face his mistakes rather than run from them. He's a man who gave up his freedom to keep his integrity." Sarah looks around at all the faces staring at her. "And he's a man who sees beauty where others see plainness, who sees strength where others see weakness, who sees worth where others see failure." She straightens her shoulders and walks back toward her house. "I think that makes me the luckiest woman in Copper Ridge. What do you think? Is Sarah foolish for waiting for a man in prison, or is she the wisest woman in town? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what makes a marriage worth having." 2 years later, Jake Morrison returns to Copper Ridge. He's thinner, grayer, but his eyes are clear and honest. Sarah meets him at the train station, still beautiful in her plain way, still strong in her quiet way. "Hello, husband," she says. "Hello, wife," he replies. And as they walk home together, the people of Copper Ridge finally understand what they've been looking at all these years. Not a plain woman who couldn't catch a man's eye, but the most beautiful woman in Arizona territory who caught the right man's heart. Sometimes the most extraordinary love stories are written in the most ordinary places. Sometimes the most beautiful people are the ones everyone else overlooks. And sometimes being plain is the most precious thing of all. Because plain means real, plain means honest, plain means true. And true love, well, that's the most beautiful thing in the world. Thank you for listening to this story of Sarah and Jake. Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued? Have you ever discovered that what makes you different might actually make you extraordinary? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and your stories inspire me to keep telling tales of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Remember, in a world full of fool's gold, being genuine is the rarest treasure of all.